Hi, I'm Rob Sweezy, President of Adventist Risk Management. The work of the treasurer is one of the most important jobs in the church. With it comes spiritual, moral, and legal responsibilities. No one wants to admit that theft and cover-ups exist in a Christian environment, but they do. That's why it's important that we protect ourselves and our institutions from incidents that may cause the church harm. Treasurers, whether they work for a school or church, are accountable for the way money is handled and distributed. Here at Adventist Risk Management, we're committed to helping the church eliminate risk associated with the treasury. Our staff is eager to work with your organization to address any concerns you may have. This video is a complement to the North American Division's training video entitled Trustees of the Lord's Finances. Please view that series first. Our presentation, House Upon a Rock, is designed to provide guidelines for fiduciary and liability issues affecting the Treasury. We hope this presentation will be useful to you and your workers.
I go to the rock of my salvation. I go to the stone that the builder rejected. I run to the mountain and the mountain stands by me. The earth all around me is sinking sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock.
Two for mission, one for tithe, four for me.
When we think of those individuals who care for the financial aspects of our church, we seldom dwell on what can go wrong through the temptations that may occur while handling money. Unfortunately, there are too many instances in the church where yielding to the temptation of financial infidelity has caused someone to fall. The Seventh-day Adventist Church processes a lot of cash on any given Sabbath morning. The North American Division Church estimates that more than $13 million is dropped in its offering plates each week. $13 million. What if some of this bounty ends up in the wrong hands? How can the church protect itself from financial misuse? How can we practice good financial risk management? First, let's try and define the term risk management. The words basically describe what it is, managing risk. Risk managers try to find ways to prevent a bad situation from occurring. If a leaning tree looks as if it's going to cause damage to the roof of your home, you cut it down before it falls. Did you know that God is the supreme risk manager? He had a plan all worked out way before sin soiled the earth. That's risk management. In various parts of the Bible, we read examples that support and encourage such careful planning. Arthur Blindsey, Vice President for Adventist Risk Management, shares a few examples.
Scripture beautifully reveals key elements of risk management in action. At the time of creation in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, man is given the responsibility of caring for this world, its environment, and all the creatures God created. In Exodus chapter 20, we find God articulating a plan of governance, highlighting how we need to build a working relationship with Him and our fellow man. In Numbers chapter 3, we see God outlining a special role for the Levites, instructing them to pay close attention to how the sanctuary is cared for and maintained. Jesus Himself uses practical risk management examples such as the wise man who builds a house on the rock instead of shifting sand. You'll find that in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. And finally, we see our Savior willingly offering his own life in John 3:16 in order that all mankind will have the opportunity of eternal life. Yes, God is a risk manager. In 1936, the Seventh-day Adventist Church decided that it was time to develop and implement a risk management program for the organization. We started by protecting our properties, and over the years we've included employees and their families. But risk management goes far beyond making sure our buildings are safe or whether your auto insurance will properly cover you if you have an accident. Every aspect of the operation of the church falls under risk management, including how we handle our tithes and offerings.
Our role in Adventist risk management is to help protect the church from those who would rob God. Malachi chapter 3 verse 8 says, "Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me." When we read these words, we envision our own personal responsibility of returning tithes and giving offerings. But have you ever considered how these sacred funds are handled once you deposit them in the offering plate? We collect millions of dollars on Sabbath morning, but how can we guarantee that these funds are used for their intended purpose of furthering the gospel? How can you minimize the risk of fraud and embezzlement within your organization? Arthur Blindsey offers some guidelines to help safeguard your church or school.
Effective risk management will not only help to protect your organization from potential financial loss, it will also help you avoid misunderstandings and protect the integrity of individuals who handle money. We'd like to focus on 8 risk management steps that can make a positive difference in your organization's financial operations. It's extremely important that individuals who are asked to serve in treasury positions are known as trustworthy and dependable. Are they able to keep records in an organized manner and maintain donor information on a confidential basis? Do they meet obligations in a timely fashion? And can you understand the financial information they present? Failure to properly screen those individuals who are given financial responsibility can create opportunities for individuals to have easy access to large amounts of cash. This can lead to theft of church funds or create liability for failure to maintain donors' records and information in an appropriate manner. No matter how money is received, by a collection on Sabbath morning, sales at a school function, or the dues collected at the Pathfinder Club, prudent risk management demands a double counting of these funds. One person should not be responsible for the counting of cash. Wherever possible, 2 or more people should be present to count the money, and a written record of the results should be kept with the funds at all times until they are properly deposited in the organization's bank account. The group or individual who delivers the counted money to the treasurer should maintain a copy of the counting record for future verification if necessary. Here's an example. The Pathfinder director collects the annual dues, and the director and 2 Pathfinders count the money. When the funds are given to the church treasurer, the director keeps 1 copy of the money count in his files. This method of double record keeping can help prevent false accusations or verify cash receipts in the event of a loss. A very helpful internal control is for the monthly bank statement to be sent to an individual other than the treasurer. This individual might be a pastor, principal, or a trusted board member who is responsible for quickly reviewing the canceled checks and the amounts to determine if the transactions seem reasonable before the bank statement is presented to the treasurer for reconciliation. Any inconsistencies, missing checks, or questions should be immediately verified with your accounting records. It can be beneficial for your organization to establish signature limits on the amount an individual can issue on a check. Once this limit is reached, a second signature on the check is required, which can prevent dishonest individuals from writing unauthorized checks for high dollar amounts. All operating boards should require that financial statements be produced in accordance with established policy and rendered to the controlling committee or board on a timely basis. The treasurer should be able to present the financial statement and answer questions on transactions that occurred during the fiscal period. Dishonest transactions can be easily hidden if timely financial reports are not reviewed by other individuals who evaluate them for reasonableness and accuracy. All bank and investment accounts should be authorized by the action of the controlling committee or board. Authorization should include approval of all signers for the account and signature limits. The controlling committee or board should review and approve all forms of bank and investment accounts used by the organization. Separate accounts in the name of the church that don't have proper authorization provide dishonest individuals unlimited opportunity to commit fraud or theft. It's normal for financial questions to arise that cannot be answered immediately by the treasurer. However, questions should be noted by the controlling committee or board and a report provided at the next meeting or within a specified time. Failure to obtain answers to financial questions on a timely basis should be carefully investigated until a satisfactory answer is received. It's the responsibility of the local conference to conduct the audit of the local church and school financial records. These audits should be completed at minimum every 2 years, and a written report should be presented to the controlling committee or board. If local audits are not being conducted on a regular basis, you should ask for the assistance of the conference treasurer to schedule an audit for your organization. Some of the largest dollar amounts ever stolen from the church have occurred in situations where audits have not been performed on a regular basis.
You know, I work, and nobody appreciates me. It's so frustrating. It's as though nobody cares. All I do is sit in this office and work. I think it's about time that I had a raise. Say $10,000. Maybe $50,000. If I had $50,000, that would be wonderful. The church doesn't need the money. I can use it. Besides the fact that I'd feel better about it. I certainly deserve it. And nobody does care. They wouldn't even notice probably $100,000. I mean, look how much money is in these accounts. You know, $500,000 has a nice ring to it. Nobody would ever know. I could write the check right now. Besides, at least I appreciate me. Nobody else does. $500,000. Sounds like a good number to me.
Insider theft can occur at all levels in our schools and churches. The problem with insider theft is that it's not so much the result of bad intentions, but rather an avenue of opportunity and motivation. As a religious organization, we often place too much trust in a single individual. Anyone with access to money has the opportunity to steal it. So, if you can establish a good financial risk management plan, you will eliminate motive and opportunity. George Pillow is a field representative for Adventist Risk Management and serves clients in North America. He offers guidelines on how churches and schools can protect themselves from fraud.
The best way to eliminate embezzlement in the Treasury as we understand it would be to address the crime issue. And to define crime as we understand it, there are two elements. The first element that we think that is necessary would be opportunity. Opportunity is provided when individuals are given too much responsibility of trust without sharing with others. The internal control should be that the bank statement that comes to the organization should go to someone other than the person that is actually doing the record keeping, and we feel that the reports should be verified and the bank reconciliation should verify back to the bank statement on each occasion. The people who supervise the treasurers, we have found, should be the chief executive or financial officer and the board in which the organization is responsible to. I think integrity would be an important issue that one might want to raise. Outside of integrity, the second most important would be the environment or the culture of the Treasury. And the culture of the Treasury will be that we have administrative support to make sure that no one person is ever entrusted with the responsibility of the assets of the church, that particular function is shared with more than one individual. Adventist Risk Management merely recommend to our clients these safeguards of their money assets. We are not responsible for the auditing function, which is by another entity, but we assist our clients in safeguarding them by recommending reconciliation and separation of duties and those kinds of functions as far as risk management is concerned.
White-collar crime is on the rise. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, it is estimated that close to $40 to $60 billion is stolen annually from companies. It is also estimated that 1 to 2% of a company's revenue is lost to insider theft. Stories can be told within our own denomination of local church treasurers who've misappropriated thousands of dollars, yes, even hundreds of thousands, before the deed was discovered. A review of claim files reveals multiple reported incidents in which inadequate internal control has resulted in loss of funds.
I knew it. I caught you red-handed stealing the Lord's money.
I'm really sorry. I can't believe this. I don't know what to say. I mean, I've never done this before. I'm really sorry. I mean, I have most of the money. Can I just pay it back over time and anything, please?
Well, listen, here's what we can do. Let's make a deal.
So you've just discovered that your treasurer stole $500,000 to build a new home. What do? What steps can you take to remove this individual? Should this matter go to a criminal court? Karnik Dumetsian, an attorney and vice president for Adventist Risk Management, offers some answers.
Paying back is good and acceptable, and the wrongdoer should be encouraged to do that. However, they have committed a crime. There are difficulties in simply accepting the funds and letting the matter drop. It brings the organization into disrepute. Once it comes to light that funds are missing, the natural tendency is to do the investigation yourself, to go and track down the individual and the missing funds. I think church people have to remember that they are not the police department. They're not trained in this area. They shouldn't try to play Columbo. They should let the authorities take care of the investigation. So initially they should report the loss to the police authorities, let them come and investigate. If there is a fault to be found on an individual, it's for the police authorities to make that determination and follow through with the criminal process. It's imperative that churches and individuals understand that there are two issues that we're dealing with. One is the civil side, where an individual has done wrong and restitution needs to take place. At the same time, society has set certain rules and guidelines by which we as citizens have to abide by. And one of those rules is that you shall not steal. An individual absconding with funds that belong to someone else, an organization like the church, they have committed a crime. And the police authorities need to be involved to investigate and to prosecute if they deem necessary. The church is an organization, or the conference, or the school, whatever the entity happens to be, needs to document the amounts that were lost. So they need to go through their books and determine the amounts that were lost and accurately document whether it's checks that have been missing, whether monies that were collected have been taken,
they need to document the amount that was taken and report that to the insurance company. The insurance company will then do its own investigation to verify the loss, but they will not do the investigation, the initial investigation, to determine the amounts that were taken. That'll be up to the church to do. The crime policy that the church has in place to protect the church against such losses does provide for a $2,500 deductible and then 25% of whatever money has been taken. So there is some cost to the church when such occurrences happen. Full recovery will not take place unless we are able to get restitution from the individual who has taken the money. And that's part of the activity that the insurance company will become involved in. They will require assistance from the church to attempt recovery of any missing funds. It's a requirement under our crime policy for the matter to be reported directly to the insurance company through Adventist Risk Management. They will then handle the investigation, but they need to be put on notice. The policy requires for notification to take place immediately after the incident is discovered. A proof of loss needs to be filed, and the insurance company then commences its investigation. The responsibility rests on the institution because the authorities should be involved immediately after discovery of the theft. They need to have fresh evidence in order that they could follow the trail and do their job. The insurance company is more concerned with the steps after that, the recovery of the funds or restitution to the church of any losses that it has incurred. Working in a church setting, it's always difficult to get volunteers to do the work. But that does not mean that as an organization we simply accept the first person that comes volunteering. We are under an obligation to perform appropriate background checks. We know the individual because they've been around the church, but at the same time, what do we really know about them? Individuals that are handling funds should be bonded, and in order to qualify for bond coverage, background checks need to be done and verify that there's no history in this person's background that would cause them difficulties in handling funds. Have they had past experiences where they've absconded with funds? Time and time again, there is a repeat pattern. This isn't the first time that these individuals have stolen. There's something in the background where they've been involved in prior instances of taking funds. We had a church employee who decided that they needed additional income and so started writing checks on the conference's account. This went on for a period of time. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were taken by the individual. The matter was not discovered until the employee left the church's employment. At that point, it was reported to Adventist Risk Management. We, in turn, reported it to the insurance company, filed a proof of loss. The conference was able to substantiate the amount of the loss to the insurance company, who then reimbursed the conference less the deductible. The insurance company then proceeded to attempt recovery from the individual. However, a lot of the funds had disappeared at that point. At the same time as that was going on, the police charged the individual with theft, and as part of the negotiating process of the criminal charges, the individual agreed to restitution. So over a period of time, they will be making payments back to the insurance company for the funds that were stolen. Individuals are placed in position of trust, and we expect them to act appropriately while they are in those positions of trust. When they act in such ways where funds are used for their own purposes, they've breached that trust. And by breaching that trust, they bring the whole organization into difficulty. Once a conviction is in place, judges tend to be more harsh in their sentence of these individuals because they are in positions of trust and they have breached their position of trust. And as a result, the message is sent to society with the heavy penalties that are imposed against these individuals.
Mishandling God's funds is morally wrong and may include criminal actions. We need to remember that the treasury post is an important position in the church, and we will be held accountable for misusing the Lord's money. Paying close attention to the people who handle money in your church will definitely prevent insider theft and fraud from occurring. Adventist Risk Management is here to assist you with resources for implementing an effective internal control program. Arthur Blincy explains how Adventist Risk Management is preparing to meet the future needs of local churches and schools in our ever-changing society.
The first step in developing an effective internal control program is to carefully evaluate how funds are received and handled at your church or school. Start by addressing questions raised in these videos concerning how you do business in your congregation. If you don't think your answers measure up, discuss ways and means to make long-lasting improvements. Ask questions of your local conference auditor or treasury personnel for improving your internal systems, and share ideas with other treasurers in your area on how to build a strong system of financial controls. Adventist Risk Management also offers resources at our website, www.adventistrisk.org. Here you'll find helpful hints for educating your congregation on the importance of risk management in the areas of finance and premises safety. Our professional staff is available to conduct educational workshops on these topics, and our claims department stands ready to assist in the event of a loss. Think of Adventist Risk Management as a working partner with your church or school in the areas of financial services and loss prevention.
Well, we've heard the bad news of what can happen if there are no internal controls in your organization for safeguarding funds. Not all conferences have problems. Many have taken the necessary steps to ensure that church funds are safe in the hands of the local church treasurers, all the way to the conference treasurer. To these individuals, the words of our Savior seem appropriate. You've been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. With their example to motivate us, the work of the local treasurer will continue to be one of the most trusted positions within our church. We've invited Norm Clam, treasurer of the Lake Union Conference, to share his insights on how you can effectively minister to your congregation or constituency as the local treasurer.
A good treasurer is an individual who takes and reports in a fair and accurate way so that it generates support and credibility in the organization that he is working for. And in a church or a charity, it's really important that that treasurer creates that credibility and that confidence in the reporting so that people understand their donations are appropriately being cared for. I think some of that comes just when you're a child. When you grow up, there's a code of ethics, a part of you that becomes moral, where you say, hey, I really need to be an honest, fair, just person, and I need to communicate that. I think that when you look at Treasury personnel, they have a way of doing it through numbers and paper and so forth, but the general public looks at people saying, hey, we want honest, fair, credible people. And I think it's even more important in relationship to Treasury. Our whole job revolves around our credibility. You know, it's interesting because a few years ago I used to be an auditor, quite a few years ago. I mean, my hair is getting gray now. But I learned that an auditor really is somebody that is one of my best friends. Let me give you an example. When I went to school, the really good teachers would go over my test papers, my assignments. They'd help me by correcting them. And when they did that, I could use that as a learning situation to be a better treasurer or a better student. If you take that attitude when those people come in, it really does help you. And auditors should come in with the concept that they want to help those who are recording the donations, expenditures, etc., so that it can be a more credible situation. You know, it's interesting, when you look at our church, the majority of funds, the vast majority of funds, comes in through our local churches. Their job is of utmost importance. Treasures are one of the keys to our total organization. Do you realize that all the church does flows through the hands of local churches? All of the work that the church accomplishes, most of the funds come through local churches. Those local church treasurers are a part of every evangelistic crusade that takes place in the church today. And you know what's really sad in a way is they get busy doing their work and they don't realize that it is such an important part. Last night, I sat and I listened as there was a report coming in from an elementary school, a junior high, where 2 kids got excited about telling people about Jesus. That local church treasurer, that local school treasurer, was an important part of making that happen. And so if you were to ask me whether those people are important, God knows they're important. God knows that their credibility and their responsibility is one of the most important in each one of those organizations that they work for. And yet, they're really not observed as being important because that is done in a quiet little area in the church or in their home. But they are important. When our treasurers meet in our union, one of the key things every time that we talk about is that we are a part of the mission of the church. Our mission is our business. And we should never forget that. And every time we add a column, that column is there to try and help somebody know about Jesus. And we should never, ever forget that. That's what it's about. I'm glad you asked me that question. Our treasurers should never forget that. They are a part of a mission. They are a ministry. The Treasury Department is a service department of the church. We are there to help management do the mission of the church. We are there to be of service. And the resources are a part of that service. And many times, I think treasurers may make a slight mistake by thinking that having money in the bank is the most important thing. I don't want to overlook that. We should have funds to do the mission of the church. But we need to remember that our members give their money so that people can learn about Jesus. And I think that as we work with our pastors, as we work with the principals of our schools, we do a very important task of balancing mission with dollars and cents. And God expects us to do that. On the other hand, He expects us to do the mission that He has asked us to do, and that is tell people that Jesus is going to come. It's exciting. I love being a treasurer for the church. And the reason I love being a treasurer for the church, it helps me take what I've trained for in being a businessman and doing it for Jesus, who died on the cross, so that I can be alive, so that I can have eternity. And I have that privilege in doing it for the church so that others, along with myself, can help prepare people for heaven. And that's what it's all about. That's the exciting part of it. I really like being a treasurer. It's such a blessing to be able to be a part of an organization that shares Jesus with the world. It's exciting. And to see people accept Jesus is what it's all about.
We trust that this video has helped you see the importance of careful, thorough risk management. I'm reminded of the story I heard of a toddler who was out walking with his parents on Sabbath afternoon. They came upon an idle construction site complete with stacks of building materials and a great big pile of sand. With a happy squeal, the child ran to the pile and played while his parents waited nearby. Later, as the family continued their walk, the mother glanced down at her son and said, "Bobby, what's that on your hands?" The little boy studied his fingers and noticed a thick coating of sand clinging to his skin. "That's not your sand," the mother stated. You better go put it back where it belongs." Without hesitation, little Bobby returned to the pile and carefully removed every grain from his fingers. That little boy grew up and became a highly regarded conference and division treasurer in the Adventist church. When his children would see him counting the many dollars that passed through his office in the course of his career, they'd remember the story he'd loved to tell. And they all knew that money was safe because, in the mind of that particular treasurer, his hands were filled with someone else's sand. I'm Paula Weber. Thank you for joining us. For more information about Adventist Risk Management services and resources, remember to check out our website at www.adventistrisk.org. May God bless you as you diligently serve His church and His people.
I go to the rock of my salvation. I go to the stone that the builder rejected. I run to the mountain and the mountain stands by me. The earth all around me is sinking sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock.